welcome to part 2 of my credit card deep dive. If you missed part 1, you can check it out here. Now that you know how credit cards function, let's talk about the process of actually getting a credit card. The first thing you need to consider is what kind of cards you can qualify for. Applying for a credit card will run a hard inquiry on your credit report, and you don't want to ding your credit score applying for a card that you know you won't get approved for. Most credit cards will have guidance online for the minimum suggested credit score for applicants. A quick Google search to see what credit score is recommended is a great first step before applying. If you don't already know your credit score, then check out my video on credit scores, which includes a link to get your credit score for free. Generally, credit scores below 600 will only be able to get a secured credit card, while a score of 750 plus will mean you can qualify for pretty much any card. Secured credit cards function exactly like any other credit card, except you put down a deposit equal to your credit limit, usually between $200 and $2,000, to reduce the risk for the creditor. If you fail to make your payments, the creditor will keep your deposit to cover the open balance. But if you close the account in good standing, your deposit will be returned to you. Secured credit cards function a lot like debit cards, but have the benefit of helping you build or rebuild your credit until your credit score is high enough to get approved for other cards. Every credit card will have an issuing company and will also belong to one of the major credit card networks. The primary credit card networks are Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. Credit card issuers can be pretty much any company who's willing to become a creditor to consumers. Some industries such as banks, department stores, grocery stores, and airlines have embraced offering credit cards as a key part of their customer loyalty programs. As a result, the most common credit cards in the US are store-branded credit cards that provide extra rewards for cardholders when they're used to make purchases at the company that issued them. Two examples are the Amazon Rewards Visa and the Starbucks Rewards Visa. These store-branded credit cards can be used anywhere credit cards are accepted, but their rewards programs are usually designed to provide the most benefit for spend at their stores. If you want rewards that are targeted for more general spending, then I recommend you look at the cards issued by large banks or the credit card networks themselves. Some examples of these are Chase Sapphire Preferred, Citi Simplicity, and the Bank AmeriCard. These types of cards usually have the best overall rewards, but also require the highest credit ratings to qualify for them. There are thousands of credit cards available to apply for at any one time, and it can be overwhelming to decide which is right for you. Unless you have a large amount of spending with a single company who offers a branded card, I recommend starting your research with the large bank-branded cards. If these cards are outside the reach of your current credit score, there are plenty of credit cards targeted to people rebuilding their credit. Just be aware that these cards usually have higher interest rates. Once you know which cards you'll likely qualify for, the next step is to evaluate the costs and fees and compare those to the benefits of each card. Most credit card rewards programs will pay somewhere between 1 and 5% of your total spend in rewards. Depending on your monthly spend, this may or may not be enough money in rewards to be worth researching and comparing multiple different cards. If the rewards aren't enough to interest you, then you're going to want to focus on finding the cards with the lowest cost. Fortunately, there are plenty of free options out there. So how can you evaluate a credit card? Every credit card will have a user agreement available online that you can review before applying. These agreements can be 20 plus pages, but fortunately, they're legally required to have a table, generally on the first or last page, that will line out the key financial considerations for owning that card. Let's look at a few of the most important cost elements that can be found in that table. The first is APR. As discussed in my last video, this is the interest rate of the card. Sometimes APR will be a fixed rate, like 22.99%. Other times, it may say something like prime plus 15%, which is a variable rate that will change based on market interest rates. You'll also see a penalty APR, which is an even higher APR that will apply if you make a late payment. There's also a penalty fees row in the table that will tell you what your late fee would be for any late payments. Generally, this is about $40 since that's currently the legal maximum. Remember that if you're always paying your statement balance in full every month, then the APR shouldn't matter since you'll never be charged interest or any penalties. One of the most important considerations is the annual fee. This is an amount you'll pay every year on the anniversary of your card being issued. This could be as low as $0 or as high as $1,000. You'll likely be charged your first annual fee within the first billing period of your new card if you're approved, so be sure to take that into account and not miss that. Some cards will waive the first annual fee to make it easier for customers to sign up, but you'll be hit by this nasty charge every year afterwards, so don't forget it. The rest of the credit card agreement beyond this table is filled with definitions, examples, and explanations of how everything works. This includes balance transfers, foreign currency transactions, cash advances, promotional periods, and many other scenarios. I recommend you familiarize yourself with these concepts if they apply to you, but I won't go in depth with them here since they vary widely from card to card and are generally not applicable in most responsible credit card usage scenarios. Now that you understand the costs of each card, you can compare those to the rewards program to find out which is best for you. The three main types of rewards that you'll see are cashback, airline miles, and points. Generally, cashback will offer you a small percentage of your total spend on certain categories back after the billing period. Credit card companies generally charge the vendor 2 to 4% of your spend for providing their services. So in this kind of cashback program, they're sharing some of that fee with you to encourage you to use your card as much as possible instead of cash. This 2 to 4% fee charged to the vendor is the reason some small businesses don't accept credit cards, since it's an extra cost to them on every sale. Airline miles are typically part of reward programs for cards issued by airlines, and sometimes qualify you for higher tiers in their frequent flyer programs based on your total spend. Point systems generally allow you to exchange points for goods, experiences, gift cards, or even cash back in some kind of online marketplace run by the card issuer. These point systems are generally the most complicated to understand and evaluate, since the value of a point will depend on what deals the card issuer has negotiated across many different vendors and partners. If rewards are an important part of your credit card decision, be sure to read the details of the reward program thoroughly to ensure you can accurately estimate the cost versus benefit to you personally. Now that you've picked the card that's the best fit for you, the next step will be filling out a credit card application. Generally, credit card applications will ask for some basic information, including your full name, address, social security number, date of birth, whether you own or rent your home, your employment status, and estimated annual income. As part of the application, you'll also have to give them permission to pull a hard inquiry to get your credit report. Once all that's done, you'll wait for an official approval or rejection, which depending on their process could be instant or may take as long as a week. Generally, to have a chance at being approved, you need to be at least 21 years old or 18 if you can prove you have income, a credit score of at least 600 to 700, annual income of at least $15,000, and a debt-to-income ratio below 36%. If you get rejected, unfortunately the credit card company will not provide you with any reasoning behind their decision. In this case, you'll either need to apply for the next best card on your list or spend some time building up your credit score before applying again. Hopefully you receive an email informing you that you're approved for your new card. That same email should contain the credit limit that you were approved for as well. So once you get approved for a credit card, what are the next steps? Well, first, the credit card issuer will send you the card and a welcome packet of information in the mail. This is generally 3 to 10 business days of waiting for snail mail. Once you receive it, you'll need to call or go online and activate the card before you can begin using it. Once it's activated, I highly recommend downloading the card issuer's mobile app and registering on the card's website. This will allow you to monitor the card balance in real time, set up alerts, and make digital payments. Once that's set up, then you can register for paperless statements, which means they won't mail physical copies of your monthly statement to your house, but instead will make them available online in PDF form. This is a much faster and more environmentally friendly approach to getting your monthly statements. At this point, I also recommend setting up automatic bill pay. Here, you'll link your bank account to the credit card and give them permission to automatically withdraw the full statement balance from your bank account every month on the due date. This requires close attention to your spending to ensure you don't overdraft your bank account, but it will guarantee you never miss a statement due date accidentally. If you watched my budgeting video and have a tool like Mint.com set up, this would be a great time to link your credit card to that account for easier spend tracking. Remember from my credit score video that your credit utilization ratio makes up 30% of your credit score, so try to keep your balance below 30% of your credit limit. If you're focused on improving your credit score but need to make a larger purchase that would put your credit utilization ratio over 30%, then you can choose to go in and pay off some of that purchase immediately afterwards to keep your balance low. You'll successfully be building credit even if you only spend $1 per month on your credit card and pay off the statement balance in full on time. While Congress has put some much improved controls on credit card companies over the last 20 years, unfortunately, education around proper use of credit cards is still lacking. We all know someone who's had a bad experience due to the improper use of credit cards, and as a result, many young adults today are avoiding credit cards entirely. Unfortunately, avoiding credit cards will result in minimal credit history and a weak credit score when you're looking to make bigger financial commitments such as buying a house later in life. Fortunately, you now have all the information you need to evaluate, apply for, and safely use credit cards. Please help me spread financial literacy by sharing this video with anyone else who might benefit from it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any credit card questions this video didn't answer. See you next time.